Hi guys, after many of you wanted to see how I pulled off this video that I posted on the MODO forums, I've decided to create a mini tutorial, or what I'm going to call it is a overview of how I put the effect together, and go through things such as shader tree and just a simple layering of how it was put together. Also bear with me as this is the first video I have ever done, so it's going to be very rough. Okay, so let's start with, I'll show you the videos. I've rendered out some videos earlier, just some sequences of the water, how I put it together. Let's start with, first off, you'll see this program's DJ View. It's amazing. DJ View actually. It's free. It's really good. It previews image sequences extremely fast. This is an open EXR 16-bit image sequence, and yes, it is quite simple, but it's still being able to cache it instantly, pretty much. So I recommend it. Okay, so we start off here. This is simply a noise procedural on a plane, just straightforward. It's moving down on the y-axis, so it's animated to infinitely go down in y, which gives you this kind of bubbling effect. This is then layered up again. I just duplicated half the size of it and half the speed that it moves down and half the opacity, and that's just overlaid on top, just so it's given an extra bit of detail, and it's a slower, smaller, finer green. This is pretty much what I would use, or well, did use for the texture offset. Obviously, the black and white is moving textures around, forcing that image to be distorted, as if you've gone into Photoshop and used a liquefier or the smudge tool or something. Here you'll see cellular. It's just a straight cellular texture, procedural, nothing fancy. It's animated down on the y-axis as well, so it's swimming through this procedural texture. Straight up, this is what we'd use. This is what I'd throw on as the displacement. This is it straight on, just as a normal displacement. Nothing extra, nothing fancy. And as you can see, if we zoom in here, it's quite sharp, harsh. It gives us that very obvious procedural kind of computer-generated effect. Very liney, very straight, very structured. And it doesn't really. It's got the basic kind of look of water, but the movement's just not there. It's too structured. So that's where we grab this, which is what I use as the texture offset, and that's applied to it. And as you can see, this is actually fading from just the cellular by itself, without the texture offset affecting it here. As you can see, it's still all very sharp and very structured, moving into something that's much more organic in the movement. You get kind of a secondary kind of swimming, wavery kind of effect. And as you can see, all those straight lines are just destroyed, really. They're a lot more organic in their shape, which helps give it that liquidy feel. And the fact that the texture offset is animated itself, these lines are actually, squiggling around, and that's really the base of what's going on here. Obviously, once that's done, we start doing the actual material. So I like to get rid of all the diffuse pretty much. Just tighten up the speck, sharpen it and brighten it, and then chuck on a clear coat. And because it's such a vast open area of water, it's not in a glass, it's not in a tank. There's no need to put transparency in it to actually do proper absorption distance and all that, unless you had it, you wanted it coming up onto a shore, or you wanted to see an object fading down into the water. But to keeping it fully opaque creates much faster render. But as you can see, it's still it's not quite there in the look, which is why since I'm not using transparency and not getting that nice absorption distance, I throw on this, which is it's really a luminance on incidence angle to a locator. That locator is in the same position as the sun, so any polygons facing away from it get a green luminous value to them. And since the sun's it kind of gives the effect that it's passing through the water, the light's passing through the water, getting coloured by the water itself, and then coming out the other side. And it's much cheaper than calculating. I guess you could do it with subsurface scattering, or as I said, use absorption distance with transparency. But this way is much faster. And as you can see here, this is just the lumens by itself on that displaced mesh, and it kind of looks odd by itself. But when you overlay it onto the shaded mesh, you'll see it really helps bring that liquidy feel to it, that clear kind of deep ocean, as you will. And the last one was more of a play around just to show what you can do. Really, it's just a morph map on that plane, stretching it out to be that big, and you can see it works well on a small patch as well as a huge patch of ocean. Now this is missing a few things that I added to the render that I submitted to the MODO forums, the dragon in the water, but I will go through those as well later in this tutorial. So this is the scene in MODO. It's the quick overview scene I put together to explain this look that I got with the water. Simple enough, straightforward. It's just a plane that's got the water material applied to it, and there's a physical sun in the sky, the distribution light, and the environment, as you can see here, is set up as a physically based dialect as well. I've got a bit of fog, just that was just set up for when the morph map made the water go out to the horizon, give it that nice atmospheric look. So onto the material itself. I'm just going to be repeating a lot of the stuff I said before, but I guess you'll be able to see where all those settings are in case you are new to MODO, or just want to follow along or anything. So diffuse amount, keep quite low. Diffuse colors, blue, gets picked up a little bit from the radiance, global illumination from the environment. High specular to make sure we get a nice ping from the sun, since itself doesn't have it's got a reflection. It's got a little disk you can set in the environment settings. This looks like where is it? Solar disk size. The problem with this, I find, is that it doesn't come out hot enough. Most of the time it just comes out looking orange, orangey yellow. I'm not sure if I just haven't. I assume it's something to do with clamping the light brightness. But anyway, it's just a quicker, easier way to use specular from that light rather than reflecting an actual sun. It's got a low roughness value to keep all those highlights and glints very tight. Clear coat's at 90%, quite high, to give it that nice, reflecting on the angle, but still being able to see through clearly when you're looking down on the water. Displacement is obviously quite high on it to give it the waves, and what I do here is chuck luminance up to 1 and give the color black. So in fact this is just doing nothing, but it means I can then put on things like this luminance gradient here, and it'll work straight away and give me feedback without having to do luminance amount in the gradient. I can do just color. I can just add color on, and it will automatically make it brighter. I don't have to do amount and color, because I can just add this on top of this luminance color, so it cancels each other out in a way. Here you'll see I've got my texture offsets. I've grouped them and just made the group a texture offset, so it doesn't matter what I throw in here, they all become texture offsets. So here's my first noise. Very straightforward, simple. It's pretty much just add layer, noise, and change it to simple. That's about it. I do simple because it's the movement of the water, and I don't want it to be too detailed. So I just want a nice blobby kind of movement to it. The main thing here is that it's animated on the y-axis going down. I did try using the flow noise. Problem is it doesn't work with simple. It only works with fractal or turbulence. I'm assuming that's that because it actually is only animating the multiple frequency, the other layers that get put down on top of the initial procedural. But anyway, it's animated on the Y, and here's the graph. It's just So we've just gone 1 meter at 60 frames, and set it to linear on both sides. So what that does is, you see, it just makes it go infinitely along at a constant rate, and that works well. You just chuck in 2 points, and you've got a continuous texture animating, really. This noise here is exactly the same, apart from it's just half the transparency, or half the opacity. So it overlays itself on top of the other noise, and it's halved in size, so it's 100 millimeters instead of 200 millimeters. Also, the speed I slowed down to half the speed as well, just so it's not spazzing out too much. Because if it's such a small, fine, detailed noise, and it's moving down at the same rate as the larger noise, then it's going to be changing up quite a bit. It's going to be getting quite flashy. It could be good for a very windy water, maybe, or a rough sea. But I don't want to get it too out of control with this. So that's the texture offsets. One thing with texture offsets is they do have to be below every other texture that you want them to affect. And any texture you don't want it to affect, you can either put it underneath it, or so we'll go into the cellular. Just ignore everything. If we go into the texture locator of this, you'll find in texture locators you have this texture offset amplitude. Now this value here, default is 1. This value tells the texture how much to get distorted by any texture offsets that are on this material, that are below this layer. So if we set this to 0, then the effect of these texture offsets would be fully taken away from the cellular texture. You can go up to 1 as well, and what that'll do is pretty much just make it do affect the surface, offset it as much as it can, or as much as it would by default. You can go well over 1 as well if you want it. It's great having this because you can make the texture offsets affect different textures at different amounts, and layer them up and create quite interesting effects, really. Even outside of doing this water effect, you could use it to create some really cool, interesting things, such as say, for example, clouds on a planet render. You could have a cloud texture that you've downloaded from NASA, say, and then plug in one of the procedurals as a texture offset, and it would move the clouds around on the surface of this planet at different amounts, so it'd create kind of that flow. It's quite cool, quite powerful. As for the cellular itself, it's purely just add layer cellular, and then I've just changed it to -50 and +50 on the background and foreground values, and that's it, really. It's animated on Y, just like the other noises. Here's the graph, same thing, linear, so it goes on forever. And that's the displacement. That's pretty much just giving you the whole thing. Then this gradient, for luminous color, this gradient is giving you these little green highlights, or glow kind of, giving you the fake transparency, translucent kind of effect. And it's just a locator incidence, with the locator being off here, which is roughly where the sun is, from the camera's perspective anyway. And so that's just set up like so. It's given it this, the green color is what we've given it, and I've actually keyed it on alpha instead of keying it to go from green to black on the colors. I've actually just keyed it on alpha, so it's going from 100% alpha, where it's facing away from the texture locator, to 0% opacity, or 0 alpha, where it's starting to become perpendicular to the texture locator. And it's as simple as that, really. Nothing else to it. There is a bit more to the render I did with the dragon sitting in the sea, and I will go through that scene now and explain the little extras that are in that scene, just to push it that extra level. So if we move over to this dragon scene, I'll just turn this off paused for now. There's actually been QuickTime's been crashing quite a lot while doing this recording, so this probably will be chopped together quite a bit. Hopefully it's not too discontinuous in terms of being able to follow it. I guess I'll soon see once I start putting it together. So as you can see, this is the dragon sitting in the sea. Quite a cool model, actually. It's pretty cool. Okay, so in terms of the actual scene, obviously we've got the dragon in there. I do have a directional light facing upwards. This has no shadows on it and is only affecting the dragon, and it also has acoustics procedural on the light color. Now this is purely just to give a fake, very subtle fake acoustics effect projected up onto the underside of the dragon, rather than calculating proper acoustics, because that will raise your render time significantly. To get nice, clean, crisp acoustics anyway. So it's just a quick cheat. Weird camera setup that I've got to try and make shaky cam. Anyway, as for the water itself, here's its the locator for doing the luminance. So that's just off again in the distance, roughly where the sun's coming from. So now here's the water material. Pretty much the same setup all through. There's our luminous colour for the fake subsurface, the kind of absorption distance effect going on. Our noises, two noises. You'll see here I've used fractal instead, and I've also animated the flow noise, which works when you've got it as a fractal effect. So that I've animated that rather than animating it on the Y. And same with this noise, same thing, fractal, it's duplicated. And I've set the blending mode to overlay, which gives it a bit more contrasty look. If we go and look at the current layer overlay, you'll see what that layer is doing right there, and the one below it. If we refresh that, it's just a much larger one to give us more of the bigger waves kind of rocking about. One thing you will notice I have done is on my second texture offset noise, I've actually set the texture offset amplitude to 0, so that this texture offset doesn't affect this texture offset, so which then will in turn affect every other texture. So this one stays the way it is before any effects. And then we've got the cellular, same kind of thing. This is animated on the Y, purely because it doesn't really have a animatable value here. I've tried animating seed very slowly over time. It doesn't really give the effect. It's much easier just to animate it down on Y. I've also added a waves, as you'll see here, just to give it a vast kind of rolling feel, and that's animated. The time value of that waves procedural is animated, and that's just normal multiplied on top. So it still keeps all the detail from the cellular displacement. It just adds it on top to the highest peaks, kind of. And then we've got this noise. This is to add real fine detail to it. It's just a bump map. I figured there was no point in doing it as a displacement. I'd just have to crank I'll probably have to change some of the displacement settings for it to come up nice and smooth, and it's much more quicker. It keeps my polygons down, and it adds a fine detail that doesn't really need to be seen in terms of geometry. And I've put this on to simulate kind of gusts of breeze, a breeze kind of going over the surface. So it's animated across the surface on X, and you'll see in the graph editor it's just, again, linear in, linear out, and so it just goes on forever. And I've actually masked that so it's not bumpy all over. So if I select this, I've just got a noise inside it, which is masking it, which you can do just by dragging, if you don't know, just by dragging one shader tree layer into another one, and then it becomes a mask automatically, a layer mask automatically. So that's just stopping it from being all over the place. So it's just in places. So it just looks like, it just roughens it up in spots. I think the biggest thing to make something look realistic is detail, but again, not detail all over the place. Real life has lots of large plain areas, and also does have extreme detail in places. So I think it's just a variation of it. Keeps it nice. And that's it pretty much. That's the only differences. Other than obviously, I probably spent a little bit more time getting the speed of the texture offsets right, and making sure the speed of the displacement's all good, the height of it's fine, and putting in a slightly shaky cam obviously gives it more realistic feel. But that's it really. I will be doing another video, and I'll post it up as well, showing how to get that kind of star sparkle, glistening, beautiful water kind of effect happening. I do that in After Effects just because it's easier. I wouldn't actually. It's one thing image effects can't really be pulled off in MODO. I do love to try and do as much as I can in Modo, as it stops having to do so much in post, or even doing anything in post at all. And now that you've got a few color correction controls in the post render window, it's pretty handy. But yeah, I'll be showing that in After Effects how to do that. It's quite simple. It's quite straightforward. But yeah, I hope this has been of help, and I hope you've learned something, and that these scenes will be of use. I will upload them and as is, so you can have a look through them and dissect them and have a play. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks, guys.